Hello, welcome to another episode of Speaking with Confidence. My name is Kat Matson, and on this podcast, I coach business owners, public servants, humble leaders, and what I like to call corporate hippies how to speak with authority, authenticity, confidence, and impact. Why? Well, after my career across all of those areas, public servant, business owner, certainly a corporate hippie, I've recognized that it's actually not about your skills, your experience, your expertise, your qualifications that determines whether or not you can make your impact in the universe. It's how you speak. And I'm determined to help more diverse voices contribute to the conversations that matter. So on this podcast, I offer very short, simple, sweet coaching episodes where hopefully I can help you find your voice and be confident in using your voice in order to make your impact, in order to communicate your message into the world. Now, today's episode it's a juicy one because it comes from my community. I asked, what would you like me to address on the podcast? And this comment came in from Claire Kerslake, and she said, it's about showing up more naturally and not in presentation mode. And also allowing the passion that I feel about my business and the work that I do to shine through. Ooh, I love this one. And I am going to address this one in the two parts that Claire has given it to me. How do I show up naturally and not in presentation mode? And how do I allow the passion that I feel for my business shine through? So let's deal with this whole presentation mode first of all. Now, I actually saw this beautifully in my membership a while ago. In the Impact Club membership, we have regular live calls where people can be in the hot seat. They get to practice something that they've got coming up. And we'd been working together with this one particular member, and she had gone through the structures for impact. She'd gone through all of the things that she wanted to deliver. She'd gone through her introduction. She'd gone through her key messages. And I said, okay, now that we're clear on all of that, let's present. Let's act like you've got your audience in front of you. And so she did. And the shift in her persona was marked. We all saw it on the call. This naturally confident, affable, friendly, casual conversation shifted straight into, I'm now a radio announcer and I'm going to deliver my information in a very radio announcer way. We cracked up and I said to her, who was that? And she said, what do you mean? I said, who was the radio announcer? And as we debriefed that, and so many other people on the call commented on how when we move into presentation mode, when we move into stand and deliver mode, we can take on all sorts of different personas. In the case of my member, it was radio announcer mode. For others, it might be TED speaker mode, that whole I'm going to act like I'm on the stage on the red spot and be like a powerful storytelling TED speaker. For others, it's robot voice. It's I'm just going to stand here and deliver my information with the prescribed pauses in the right places so everybody can catch up with what I'm saying. And don't get me wrong, you will still get some of your message across. But in day-to-day conversations, in everyday meetings, presentations, well, one, it's far more impactful to be authentic. It's far more comfortable to be authentic. And over the long term, as you're building relationships with the people who you see day in, day out, you don't want to have to put on radio announcer voice or robot presentation style every time you are on show. So my first tip is, if this is something that you do, why? What do you tell yourself about the difference between a conversation that you're having with a colleague or a friend and when you're standing at the end of a boardroom table with the PowerPoint deck behind you. What's the difference between sharing your ideas when you're sitting down in a team meeting and then staring down the camera of your phone, preparing to do an Instagram reel? Now, the answer to those questions might be the stakes are higher. There's more pressure. I really want to get it right. People will judge me if I get it wrong. There could be a whole lot of reasons. The other thing that might be going on is that you're thinking, well, in order to be taken seriously when I'm on camera, in order to be taken seriously when I'm standing in front of a PowerPoint deck, that I need to step into presenter mode. And I would argue that 9 times out of 10, that is absolutely not true. Now, do I put on a different performance when I'm a keynote speaker at a conference? Yes, but it's still me, and it's my version of keynote presenter, not somebody else's radio announcer or TED speaker. I think I said this in last week's episode. One of the mistakes that we tend to make when we're presenting information is that we prioritize the content over connection. And one of the problems that happens then when we put on this persona, when we step into presentation mode, we lose connection with our audience because there's this imaginary invisible barrier goes up between us and our listeners. So my hot tip here is connect with the outcome, connect with your audience, and stay connected to you. When you're in presentation mode, when you're filming a reel, when you're wanting to make your point, you're still you. And you might be just taking a little bit more time to more clearly articulate your 3 key messages, or to use structures for impact so you can take your listener on a journey. But you're not stepping into radio announcer or robot or TED speaker. Now to the second part of Claire's comment. How do I allow the passion I feel for my business shine through? Now, I found this to be such a fascinating comment because it's a good reminder that somewhere along the line, we've been told that in order to be professional, we shouldn't be excited. In order to be professional, we shouldn't get too passionate. And in order to be professional, we shouldn't show our emotion. I think that's really sad. And in an age where content can now be written, drafted, and delivered by AI, what is going to win? What is going to secure business or to convince people to change their ways, to what is going to make the dent in the universe is true connection that is stimulated by people who are obviously passionate and excited and determined about their message. I was doing some work last year with a group of CSIRO climate scientists, and one of the things that we were working on was how to be impactful when they're sharing their research to all sorts of different audiences. And one of the things that we were talking about was the importance of explaining why they do what they do. And they were struggling. And one of my clients, one of the scientists, he said, "But Kat, I'm not there to talk about me. I'm there to talk about the science. And I don't think people care about why I became a scientist or why I focus on this particular work." And I said, I couldn't disagree more. If it was about the science, then we'd all be doing what we need to be doing to combat climate change. But we're not. And so people need to hear that people like them care about these issues for all of the reasons that they care, because they're a parent, because they're worried about the future of their kids, because they've seen, all of those things. And so, as much as I'm not a fan of using the word passion in business, because I think it's an overused word in business parlance, narrative. I think it's perfectly, in fact, not only perfectly acceptable, it should be encouraged more to be enthusiastic, be effusive, be determined. I said at the top of this episode, the reason I care about this work is because I want more diverse voices contributing to the conversations that matter. And it does my head in that it's the same old people who end up at the same old tables contributing to the same old decisions. And it's not because they're the smartest people in the room. It's because they know how the game is played. They know how to be heard. So to Claire's second point, be enthusiastic, be excited, be passionate, and explain why. Explain why you care about your work. Use your client stories, use your own personal experience. Be completely and utterly okay to make your stories personal by sharing human stories, whether it's your own or your clients. When we allow ourselves to connect with our passion and express it, our listeners feel it and they want to join the journey with us. They want to come because they want some of it. Like they want to be part of that. So that's how to show up. That is how you be authentically you and be enthusiastically passionate, excited, authentically you. Now, if this is your first ever episode of Speaking with Confidence, then this whole concept of authenticity might be new to you. But if you are a regular listener, you will know that authenticity would have to be my number 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10 values when it comes to speaking. And one of my biggest issues with a lot of the other public speaking or even speaking courses is that they are teaching you how to be like other people. They're teaching you how to show up and look like a something else. It's unsustainable. It might work for one presentation, but it won't work when you've got a random opportunity to talk to a colleague. Authenticity is the number one. It's the number one value and contributor to powerful communication and to powerful conversations, particularly in an age of AI generated content. So the more you bring you, flaws, faults, and idiosyncrasies all wrapped up, the more you bring you to the conversation, the more you will connect with your listener and the more you'll take them on the journey. So if you're keen to kind of dive a little bit deeper into how do you authentically show up like yourself as distinct to somebody else, a couple of other podcast episodes from my back catalogue that you might like. One is episode 60, where I talk about authenticity, misery porn, and stories of happiness. Because one of the things that I notice a lot is that we think that authenticity means share your deepest, darkest, warts and all stories. Yeah, nah. No. I mean, sure, if that's part of your story, go for it. But what happens if you don't have a warts and all or a phoenix story? We don't all have that. Authenticity is just being 100% yourself. So when I talk about authenticity, I'm not talking about bearing your soul and talking about your dark night of the soul. I'm talking about showing up as you and explaining why you care about the things that you care about. So episode 60 is all about authenticity, misery porn, and stories of happiness, and how stories of happiness can actually be more impactful, more moving than the misery stories, particularly at the moment. The other episode that is well worth a listen is episode 100, which is the power of stories in driving community impact. Because it was episode 100 and it was a big celebration episode, I interviewed two of my Impactful Presenters alumni who are both doing extraordinary things in the space of community impact. Two of the most down-to-earth, delightful and authentic women you'll ever hear. And we talk about the power of that authenticity in driving the ripple effect of change through our community. So that's how you show up as yourself and how you avoid that temptation to step into radio announcer or TED speaker or robot style voice whenever you're communicating your message. If you would like more, if you would like to have a chat with me about how do you improve your speaking confidence, then you can book in for a confidence boosting curiosity call. That is a 20-minute free, no obligation call where I will hear your story, however you want to tell it to me, and why speaking is important to you. And in that conversation, I will absolutely share my programs, my coaching, how that all works. But most importantly, I will share with you my recommended next best steps for you. The other thing, if you're extra brave, if you would like to contribute to what I call working out loud, and if you want to have a free half-hour coaching session with me, then book in for a free confidence coaching call. Confidence coaching call where we work out loud. We work out loud. And what I mean by work out loud is becomes a podcast episode. Because when other people see how other people work, they get a whole lot of aha moments as well. So if you'd like to just jump in and have a free coaching call with me, book in for that free confidence coaching call. It's free because it gets used as a podcast. If you don't want to commit to the podcast episode, and if you'd prefer to just have a one-on-one conversation, then you want to book in for that confidence boosting curiosity call. I hope you're feeling a little bit more comfortable in being your authentic self. Whoever that is, that authentic self, and however you show up in the world. And if you've got any questions, if you want to chat further with me, then find me on social media. All of the links are in the show notes. I'm particularly enjoying Instagram and Threads at the moment. And just ask me a question. Just ask. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please like, rate, review, share, or follow the podcast so that the algorithm gets its little tickle and sends this podcast out to more diverse voices so that they can also make their unique dent in the universe. Until next week, here's to confidence and here's to impact. I'll see you soon.